and Arab countries cut off all oil shipments to the United States.
We are heading for the most acute shortages of energy.
भाइयों और बहनों, राष्ट्रपति जी ने आपातकाल की घोषणा की है.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi has called out to over 100 solar-rich countries, those are in the tropics, to join the International Solar Alliance to develop clean and affordable solar energy.
There is already a revolution in solar energy. Technology is evolving and grid connectivity is improving.
Creating more power from renewable energy than the entire electricity system today. No country in the world has undergone this kind of a transformation.
Earlier this month, the Government of India declared a village in the western state of Gujarat as the first to be powered completely by solar energy.
सिर्फ भारत में ही नहीं, विश्व में भी सोलार क्रांति चाहते हैं.
Hi everybody, India has been long dependent on the Middle East for oil for 70 years now. And because of this, if you look at this graph, every time there is chaos in the world, the oil price spikes and we have to face the brunt of inflation. For example, when the Saudis got annoyed at Israel in 1973, they suddenly raised the oil price from $20 a barrel to $60 a barrel. And this sent shockwaves of inflation all across India. This inflation, combined with our 1971 war with Pakistan, rattled the economy of India.
कुछ ही घंटे पहले पाकिस्तानी हवाई जहाजों ने हवाई अड्डों पर बमबारी की.
We are heading for the most acute shortages of energy since World War II.
भाइयों और बहनों, राष्ट्रपति जी ने आपातकाल की घोषणा की है. इससे आतंकित होने का कोई कारण नहीं है.
Similarly, now we saw how the Russia-Ukraine war led to oil price hikes, which directly led to inflation in India. In fact, even in small matters like when Biden made a statement against Saudi Arabia, MBS got annoyed and suddenly he cut the oil production by 2% and we saw inflation in India again.
The US President Joe Biden in a rapprochement with Riyadh and Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. That relationship has now turned sour. Washington is angry at last week's decision by the Saudi-led OPEC cartel.
Million barrel of reduction for the start that starts at the 1st of July.
Reports say MBS would impose significant economic costs on the US if it retaliated against the oil cuts. In an interview to an American broadcaster, Biden said there are going to be some consequences for what they've done with Russia. He's promising to punish the kingdom.
So the Indian economy, along with its own challenges, is being slowed down because of some random conflict that we aren't even involved in. This is the reason why India has been working very hard to decrease its energy dependence on the Middle East. And one of the most important moves that we've made is the formation of something called the International Solar Alliance. This is an alliance of 100 countries that will become the solar powerhouse of the world. And according to the Prime Minister himself, if this alliance is formed and operated properly, just like the Middle Eastern countries dominated the 20th century to become the richest nations in the world, we could become the key energy supplier of the world in the future. Now, although I do not agree with this, one thing for sure is that if we aim to be a supplier of energy, we will at least end up being energy independent. And that is a big deal for India. The best part is, if you're in the solar sector today, this policy could bring a gold mine of opportunities for you. So in this case study today, let us dig deep and try to understand what is this International Solar Alliance, why is this alliance considered to be so powerful, what is the advantage that India has over other Western countries, and most importantly, as entrepreneurs of the future, what are the business opportunities for you in this Indian solar revolution? This video is brought to you by Chat GPT plus Communication Masterclass course. People, if you are somebody who struggles to speak your ideas out in public, if you are somebody who lacks the confidence to speak in public, or if you are somebody who often mumbles while presenting your thoughts, I would highly recommend you to join our Communication Masterclass course. This course is a 6 weeks course whereby I will take you step by step from a beginner's level all the way up to a TEDx level presentation skill. The best part is that if you have any doubts, I will personally talk to you during our weekly live sessions to help you overcome every fear you have. Cherry on the cake, you will also get special access to the Chat GPT module whereby I will teach you how to use the secret prompts in Chat GPT for storytelling, for business research and even English speaking. This is why now it's Communication Masterclass plus Chat GPT course put together. So if you also want to master your art of communication and if you want to present your ideas in the most powerful manner possible, come join our Communication Masterclass course using the link below. And I will see you in the live session. Chalo, let's start with the basics and first try to understand the context. Right now, there are two important mega trends in the world economy. Number one, as of 2021, the world consumed 176,000 terawatt of energy and around 76% of our energy requirements came from fossil fuels. That's 135,000 terawatt hours. And now the governments all across the world have agreed that because of carbon emissions, global warming is happening and climate change is a catastrophe in the making. This is the reason why, if you see, in the past 5 years, every major country has already declared its zero carbon target.
India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi outlined a series of carbon-cutting commitments for the coming decades, with the goal of India reaching net zero by 2070.
We need to get to zero emissions by 2050. We have to come up with an alternate way, which isn't too much more expensive, to perform those same activities without emitting any greenhouse gases.
We must all make additional efforts in order to achieve the targets for 2030. We also want to commit ourselves to achieving carbon neutrality by 2050.
The Australian government has announced plans to amend the National Carbon Offset Standard to include offset activities of cities and precincts.
This means 176,000 terawatts of energy demand needs to be met by renewable energy sources. But as of now, we only have 34,000 terawatt hours of capacity. So the demand for solar, wind and other renewable sources is going to shoot up in the next 20 years. Number two, with each passing decade, the cost of renewable energy has been decreasing. If you look at this chart, you will see that the cost of solar in the past 3 decades has dropped by 82% from $378 to just $68 per megawatt hour. Similarly, the cost of wind has dropped by 38% from $86 to $53, and the same is the case with others also. But amongst these sources, solar is expected to be the dominating source of renewable energy for 3 specific reasons. Number one is the falling costs, as we saw in the graph. Number two is the scalability factor. Solar can be used in a variety of applications, starting from a small scale installation like rooftop solar panels all the way to a large solar farm. So you can scale it economically with flexibility. And this flexibility allows us to deploy solar energy at various scales to meet different energy requirements. And lastly, there is an abundance of solar energy. In simple words, wind energy requires a minimum wind speed of 40 to 50 kilometers per hour to generate a significant amount of energy. Similarly, hydro energy requires a very high flow of water. But for solar, you just need consistent exposure to sunlight. That's it. This is the reason why economists anticipate that solar is going to be the most dominating source of renewable energy. Now the question over here is, if sunlight is needed for solar energy, then this is everybody's game, isn't it? Because more or less every major country already has enough exposure to sunlight, isn't it? Then what is so special about India and how is it giving us an edge over other countries? Well, this is where you need to understand the importance of something called torrid zone. In simple words, torrid zone is the region that lies between the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn. And as seen in the map, it covers numerous countries across the world like India, Nepal, Nigeria, Ethiopia, Brazil, Chile and Australia. And because these countries fall in the torrid zone, there are 3 major advantages that these countries have over other countries. Firstly, this zone receives the most sunlight throughout the year. On an average, they get 300 sunny days annually, which makes it the best zone for solar energy. Secondly, as you can see in the image, the angle of incidence of sunlight near the equator is nearly 90 degrees to the Earth's surface. And this angle keeps on decreasing as we move towards the poles on both sides. So the area between the tropics has a more direct angle of incidence, because of which it gets intense sunlight. And this intensity directly translates into higher energy yields on the solar panels. To put it more technically, the potential of a region to produce solar power can be measured using a unit called GHI, or Global Horizontal Irradiation. GHI is measured in kilowatt hours per square meter. So higher the GHI in a region, the more potential it has to produce solar power. And as you can see in this map, the areas in the torrid zone have the highest GHI. While regions in the torrid zone have a GHI in the range of 4.8 to 8 kilowatt hour per meter square, the areas outside the zone have a GHI of below 4.8 and goes all the way down to just 2. So there is a huge difference between what we can harness as compared to what other regions can harness. And both these advantages put together give us the third advantage, and that is the advantage of cost. Now the point to be noted over here is that you can't compare the cost of solar versus the cost of coal only on the basis of per unit costs, because there are other major expenses like storage costs, maintenance costs, depreciation, etc. So you need to calculate the output of the solar panels based on the cost of the energy during its entire lifetime. And this is where we came across a unit called the levelized cost of energy, or LCOE. This unit basically calculates the average cost of producing electricity from solar panels over its entire lifetime. So for solar, the lifetime costs of electricity generation include the initial investment cost for installing the panels, the storage cost, the maintenance cost, the depreciation cost, and even the lessening of efficiency over time. And that is the reason why it is a more dependable variable to calculate the cost of energy. And as you can see in this map, India, Chile, parts of China and Africa, all of them have some of the lowest levelized costs of electricity. While in India it may cost us 6 to 8 cents to produce 1 kilowatt hour, in Russia it could cost us as much as 26 cents per kilowatt hour. So it will cost them 4 times more to produce the same amount of energy as us. These are the 3 major advantages that we have over other countries. That is more sunlight, consistent sunlight, resulting into 2 to 4 times lower levelized costs of electricity. So if all these countries with a very high solar energy potential come together, we will be able to command a dominating share in the renewable energy space. And this is the reason why, ladies and gentlemen, India is pioneering the idea of International Solar Alliance, whereby India wants to bring in these sunshine countries and build an action-oriented, member-driven and collaborative platform to deploy solar energy all across the world. So let's try to understand what is the ISA doing to achieve its objectives and what is India doing as the leader of this movement. Number 1, ISA has come up with an initiative called the One Sun, One Earth, One Grid initiative, which means powering the whole world with solar electricity through a unified electric grid. So this initiative intends to develop a worldwide grid by which clean energy can be transmitted anywhere to be used anytime. The first phase is connecting the Indian grid with those of Middle East, South Asia and Southeast Asia. The second phase will connect it to Africa. And in phase 3, it will go to the rest of the world, incorporating as many countries as possible, eventually creating a single expansive power grid of renewable energy which will be accessible to all nations. Secondly, to create the solar grid globally, countries will require sufficient financing to invest and set up solar plants, which will be ensured by the ISA itself to a large extent. And lastly, apart from infrastructure, capacity building of human resources is very, very important. So ISA has developed a Star C program whereby the member countries will get training on technical skills and entrepreneurship through these hubs called the Star Centers. These Star Centers are meant for government officials, technicians, engineers and industry associations so that we can help them develop the skills needed to work with solar energy. And according to this brochure, by 2030, 50 Star Centers are expected to be established. And this gives the international solar grid 3 major advantages. The countries that are connected to the grid will be able to harness solar energy not just during the day, but even during the night time. So according to the National Investment Promotion and Facilitation Agency, after the grid is built, when one part of the world has daytime, its energy can be transported to the other countries where it is nighttime. For example, when it's nighttime in Australia, the energy could be transported from Chile to Australia through the grid. Now, although this will increase the transportation cost, it is significantly expected to lower the storage costs. So overall, theoretically, it is expected to make energy cheaper. Secondly, because ISA is helping with funding and insurance, the investors will be less skeptical to invest in these African regions, which otherwise are completely ignored due to their internal conflicts and government issues. So this way, even African countries can be a part of this grid by which other countries will be able to harness the huge potential of solar energy from the African torrid zone countries. And lastly, because of resource sharing, if Australia manages to crack the code of low-cost solar production, they can pass on these learnings to India and the Middle Eastern countries so that even we can achieve the same economics. Similarly, if we crack the code to better solar panel recycling, we can share these learnings with the world. So instead of individual countries wasting their time and resources on the same research, through ISA, the research learnings could be shared to achieve cheaper production of solar energy. These are the advantages that ISA brings to the table, which is all-time energy supply, lower storage costs, investor confidence, and access to research learnings. This is the reason why the members of ISA are really looking forward to this collaboration. And this brings us to the last part of the episode, which is about what is India doing as the leader of ISA and how will we benefit from this initiative. Well, the first thing India is providing to ISA is financing. By the year 2025, the Indian government has pledged to provide a massive sum of $2 billion for international concessional financing dedicated only to solar power. And the Indian Export-Import Bank is extending lines of credit with lower interest rates to partner nations. And the catch over here is that in exchange for this financing, these projects must primarily employ Indian companies and predominantly use Indian goods and services such as solar batteries and solar panels. Which means what? It opens up a huge opportunity for Indian solar companies to tap into the gold mine of this world solar wave. And as of February 2019, the Exim Bank has successfully distributed $187 million to 9 countries, and 27 more projects worth $1.46 billion have already been approved. Secondly, the Government of India has been supporting the ISA by providing training to master trainers in the field of solar energy through something called the Indian Technical and Economic Corporation Scheme. And finally, the Government of India is pushing as many solar ventures as it can in order to achieve our net zero dream by 2070. And this is opening up a lot of opportunities for the Indian entrepreneurs. And one such category is the rooftop solar category. And what this does is that it makes us more independent by generating power closer to our homes and offices, eventually reducing energy costs and providing us with a backup during power outages. And this is a field where Indian companies have long been showcasing their mastery and expertise. For example, we found one company that is one of the largest and fastest growing rooftop solar operations and management companies in the country. It's called Huron Energy. They have developed some of India's highest energy generating solar projects to date. And the reason why Indian companies like Huron are growing so fast is because they are able to offer the lowest lifetime per unit cost of solar energy generation. These companies have integrated tech to such an extent that they even offer waterless rooftop robotic cleaners. Similarly, from the consumer standpoint, today the Indian solar space is evolving so fast that booking a solar service is becoming as easy as booking a service from Urban Clap, whereby you can get your services at your doorstep with a press of a button. This is where entrepreneurs like Urvesh Dave are leading the solar movement. So starting from manufacturing to setup to buying to maintenance, at every stage of the value chain, incredible entrepreneurs are coming up in India. So now that Huron has been able to achieve this incredible feat in India, ISA only expands the scope of companies like Huron in Africa and the Middle Eastern countries. So if this alliance does well, if the solar entrepreneurs of India end up tapping on this opportunity properly, and if we share the resources in the most optimized manner possible, then there is a very, very good possibility that India will go on to become an energy independent country. This means our economy will remain safer from geopolitical shocks, our forex reserves won't bleed during turmoil, and most importantly, since we are helping other countries in the ISA, we would have a huge leverage over them. This is how International Solar Alliance is actually laying the foundation for the solar entrepreneurs in India. And this brings us to the final segment of the episode, and that are the points of skepticism that we found while studying this mission. Firstly, it's been 8 years since this announcement has happened, and yet when I searched for star centers in India, I could not find anything. So although it looks like a promising initiative, we as citizens need to keep an eye on whether really something is happening or not. Secondly, when I was doing my market research with solar entrepreneurs, very few of them actually knew about this initiative. And even if they did, they had no idea how to avail the benefit from this initiative. So it's very evident that the government needs to spread awareness of this initiative so that our entrepreneurs can take advantage of it. Which is why I am leaving a link to this procurement page in the description, whereby you can actually find all the proposals that the government is seeking from companies. So you can actually submit your proposal and see if you can get a business opportunity. Thirdly, we are heavily dependent on China for our solar related raw materials. So if China wants, they can easily restrict our dominance in the International Solar Alliance. And lastly, the coordination between 100 countries is going to be a big task for India. Because if another geopolitical conflict like the Russia-Ukraine conflict pops up, it's going to cost us very heavily. So as entrepreneurs, you can actually tap onto the opportunities that this initiative is creating. And secondly, as citizens of the country, you need to keep an eye on the government so that this initiative is executed well and doesn't just remain as a marketing gimmick. That's all from my side for today, guys. You can find all the study materials in the description. If you learned something valuable, please make sure to hit the like button in order to make YouTube Baba happy. And for more such insightful business and political case studies, please subscribe to our channel. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.